Will Freeman's hand tightened on his pulse rifle as he crouched in the shadows of the Iridian outpost. His mission was clear: assassinate Juno, daughter of a high-ranking Iridian official. But as he breached her quarters, he never expected to be seduced by the alien he came to kill. The jungle planet's humid air clung to Will's skin as he moved silently through the alien compound. Years of interstellar war between humans and the Iridian Empire had led to this moment. Countless human colonies lay in ruins, and Will's superiors demanded retaliation. As a seasoned Special Forces operative, he was the perfect choice for this high-stakes mission. Will's enhanced senses, honed through rigorous training, detected no alarms as he easily bypassed the outpost's defenses. His heart raced with anticipation as he approached Juno's quarters. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit chamber. As Will raised his weapon, his eyes fell upon Juno's sleeping form. He froze, transfixed by her otherworldly beauty. Her iridescent purple skin seemed to glow in the low light. Large, almond-shaped eyes were closed in peaceful slumber, framed by delicate facial features. Her graceful form was draped in silken garments that accentuated her alien yet alluring physique. Suddenly, Juno's eyes snapped open. Fear flashed across her face as she caught sight of the armed human intruder. She leapt from her bed, attempting to flee. Will's combat reflexes kicked in, and he swiftly intercepted her. His strong arms wrapped around her lithe form, subduing her effortlessly. In that moment of close contact, something unexpected happened. A spark of attraction ignited between them, catching both off guard. Will's resolve wavered as he held Juno, her alien warmth seeping through his tactical gear. He hesitated, torn between his duty and the strange desire building within him. Juno sensed Will's internal struggle. Her large eyes studied his face, noting the conflict in his expression. With cautious hope, she realized he might not intend to kill her after all. Slowly, carefully, she began to speak. "Please," Juno said in halting English, her melodic voice tinged with urgency. "I am not your enemy. I oppose my father's warmongering ways. I seek peace between our species." Will's grip loosened slightly as he processed her words. He found himself captivated not just by her exotic appearance, but by the sincerity in her voice. Could she be telling the truth? Could this encounter change the course of the war? As Will's mind raced with possibilities, alarms began to blare throughout the outpost. Their time was running out. In that crucial moment, he made a decision that would alter both their fates and potentially reshape the interstellar conflict. "I believe you," Will said, lowering his weapon. "We need to leave. Now. I'll help you escape and defect to the human side. Your intelligence could end this war." Juno's eyes widened with a mix of surprise and hope. She nodded, recognizing the opportunity to save both their species and explore the undeniable connection forming between them. As shouts and heavy footsteps approached, Will and Juno prepared to flee. Their unlikely alliance represented a small beacon of hope amidst the chaos of war. Together, they would embark on a dangerous journey that would challenge their loyalties, ignite forbidden passions, and potentially bridge the gap between their warring civilizations. Will and Juno burst through the door of her quarters, their hearts pounding in unison. The outpost's alarms blared, drowning out the sound of their rapid footsteps as they raced down the corridor. Will's mind raced, formulating an escape plan on the fly. "This way," he whispered, guiding Juno with a firm hand on her lower back. The touch sent a shiver through both of them, despite the urgency of their situation. They rounded a corner and came face to face with their first obstacle, a shimmering laser grid that blocked the entire passageway. Will's enhanced vision detected the deadly energy beams crisscrossing in a complex pattern. "Hold on," he said, pulling Juno close. Her alien warmth pressed against him as he analyzed the grid sequence. "We'll need to time this perfectly." Will led Juno through a series of precise movements, their bodies twisting and bending in synchronization to avoid the lasers. As they emerged on the other side, both were breathless, not just from exertion, but from the intimate proximity they had shared. No time to dwell on it. They pressed on, Will's tactical training kicking into high gear as he navigated them through the outpost's labyrinthine corridors. Motion-sensing turrets swiveled towards them, and Will reacted with lightning speed, pulling Juno into alcoves and shadows to avoid detection. "You're incredible," Juno breathed, her large eyes wide with admiration as Will disabled a turret with a well-placed shot from his pulse rifle. They finally reached the hangar, a cavernous space filled with sleek, Iridian shuttles. Will's gaze locked onto a small, agile-looking craft near the exit. "That one," he said, pointing. "It's our ticket out of here." As they sprinted towards the shuttle, the hangar doors began to close. Will boosted Juno up into the craft before leaping in himself. His hands flew over the alien controls, muscle memory from years of covert operations taking over. The shuttle hummed to life, lifting off just as the hangar doors slammed shut. Will expertly maneuvered the craft through a narrow maintenance shaft, bursting out into the planet's atmosphere. Juno watched in awe as Will piloted the Iridian technology with ease. "How did you learn to fly our ships?" she asked, genuinely curious. Will's lips curved into a small smile. "Let's just say I've had some practice." Their moment of relief was short-lived. A proximity alert blared, and Juno's face paled as she recognized the massive warship that appeared on their sensors. "It's the Sundered Sky," she gasped, "commanded by Zex." Will's eyebrows furrowed. "You're betrothed?" Juno nodded, her expression a mix of fear and drive. "He's ruthless, Will. We can't let him catch us." Will's hands tightened on the controls. "He won't." What followed was a heart-stopping chase through the sector. Will pushed the shuttle to its limits, weaving through dense asteroid fields and diving into the swirling gases of nebula clouds. The Sundered Sky pursued relentlessly, its superior firepower barely missing them with each volley. During a brief respite behind a large asteroid, Juno accessed the shuttle's database. Her fingers flew over the holographic interface, eyes scanning rapidly. "Will, look at this," she said urgently. "It's a complete breakdown of Iridian military strategies and weaknesses. This could change everything." As Juno shared the vital information, Will felt a deepening connection between them. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between human and Iridian. Their moment was interrupted by a familiar voice crackling over the comm system. "Freeman, this is Admiral Stryker. You are ordered to dock at Outpost Zeta 9 immediately for debriefing." Will hesitated, glancing at Juno. The thought of delivering her into potentially hostile human hands made his stomach churn. Sensing his concern, Juno placed a hand on his arm. "What about a neutral location? Somewhere we'd both be safe?" Will nodded, an idea forming. "Nexus Prime. It's a trade hub, diverse population. We could blend in there." He switched off the comm, altering their course. As they approached the bustling planet, Will knew they were defying both their species' expectations. But looking at Juno, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Landing on Nexus Prime, the reality of their situation hit home. They were now fugitives, hunted by both sides of an interstellar war. Will's training kicked in once more as he procured fake identities and secured a nondescript apartment in the planet's sprawling megacity. As the door to their hideout closed behind them, the adrenaline of their escape finally wore off. Will and Juno found themselves alone, the air thick with unspoken tension. Juno took a step closer to Will, her large eyes searching his face. I have feelings for you," she confessed, her melodic voice tinged with uncertainty. "But I'm not familiar with human courtship rituals. How do your people express attraction?" Will felt a rush of excitement and nervousness. He reached out, gently taking Juno's hand in his. "Something like this," he said softly, marveling at the contrast between her iridescent skin and his own. Their intimate moment was shattered by an urgent news broadcast. A holographic display flickered to life, showing scenes of escalating conflict between human and Iridian forces. "Both sides are preparing for a final confrontation," Juno whispered, horror evident in her voice. "The information we have could prevent this." Will nodded grimly. "But using it would expose us, put us both in danger." As they grappled with this moral quandary, a soft chime indicated an incoming encrypted message. Will's brow furrowed as he read aloud. "To the human soldier and Iridian defector, We represent an organization dedicated to peace between our species. We offer protection and the chance to end this war. Meet us at the coordinates provided if you wish to save countless lives. Will and Juno exchanged a long look, weighing the risks against the potential to make a difference. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, complicated by the growing attraction between them. As they considered their next move, one thing was clear. Whatever they decided, they would face it together. Will and Juno exchanged a meaningful glance, their decision made. The encrypted message offered a glimmer of hope in their increasingly precarious situation. "We have to go," Juno said, her melodic voice tinged with dedication. "It's our best chance to make a difference." Will nodded, his tactical mind already assessing potential risks and outcomes. "Agreed, but we'll need to be cautious. This could easily be a trap." They gathered what few supplies they had and slipped out of their hideout, blending into the bustling crowds of Nexus Prime. The city's vibrant energy pulsed around them as they made their way to the coordinates provided in the message. As they descended into the hidden underground chamber beneath the market district, Will's enhanced senses were on high alert. The air grew cooler, filled with the scent of damp stone and electricity. Juno's iridescent skin seemed to shimmer in the low light, a reminder of the vast differences between them. The chamber opened up before them, revealing a sophisticated command center humming with advanced technology. Two figures stood waiting, a Iridian female with striking blue markings and a human male with graying hair and intense eyes. "Welcome," the Iridian said, her voice carrying a note of authority. "I am Zara, and this is Dr. Marcus Boyd. We lead the Harmony Initiative." Will's hand instinctively tightened on his weapon, but Juno placed a calming hand on his arm. "What exactly is the Harmony Initiative?" she asked. Marcus stepped forward, his expression earnest. "We're a coalition of humans and Iridians working in secret to end this war. We believe cooperation between our species is not only possible, but essential for our survival." Zara nodded, her large eyes fixed on Will and Juno. "Your unexpected alliance presents a unique opportunity. We have a plan that could force both sides to negotiate, but we need your help." As Zara outlined their bold strategy to infiltrate a Iridian research facility and steal weapon plans, Will felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. It was a risky move, but one that could potentially save countless lives. "I'm in," Will said, his voice firm. He turned to Juno, searching her alien features for any sign of hesitation. Juno met his gaze, her willpower clear. "As am I, but how can we hope to infiltrate a Iridian facility? I would be immediately recognized." Zara's expression turned grave. "There is a way, but it's not without risk. We've developed an experimental nanotechnology that can temporarily alter Iridian physiology to appear human." Will's protective instincts flared. "Absolutely not. We can't subject Juno to some untested procedure." But Juno stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "It's my choice, Will, and I choose to do whatever it takes to end this war." As Juno was prepared for the procedure, Will paced anxiously. The weight of their mission pressed down on him, along with the growing realization of how much Juno had come to mean to him. Hours later, Juno emerged from the transformation chamber. Will's breath caught in his throat. She still radiated an otherworldly beauty, but now with human features, soft skin, dark hair, and eyes that somehow retained their alien allure. Juno examined her new appearance with wonder. "It's strange," she said, her voice unchanged. "But I feel like myself." Will approached her, drawn by an irresistible pull. "You're beautiful," he said softly, reaching out to touch her now human cheek. The moment was charged with unspoken emotion. Their intimate exchange was shattered by the sudden wail of alarms. Marcus rushed to a control panel, his face pale. "We've been discovered. Commander Zex's forces are attacking the base." Chaos erupted as Iridian soldiers burst into the chamber. Will's combat training kicked in instantly. He grabbed Juno's hand, pulling her behind cover as energy blasts scorched the air around them. "Stay close," Will shouted, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Juno proved herself a capable fighter, her movements graceful and lethal as she engaged the enemy. In the confusion, Will and Juno became separated from Zara and Marcus. They fought their way through the complex, their teamwork flawless despite the dire circumstances. A stray blast caught Will in the shoulder, sending him stumbling. Juno reacted instantly, dragging him into an abandoned storage room and sealing the door. "Will!" Juno's voice was filled with concern as she examined his wound. Her gentle touch sent shivers through him, despite the pain. "I'm all right," Will assured her. His eyes locked on her face. The adrenaline of battle, combined with their close proximity, ignited something primal within him. Without thinking, Will pulled Juno close and kissed her. It was passionate and desperate, a release of all the tension that had been building between them. When they finally parted, both were breathless. Juno touched her lips, her expression a mix of confusion and desire. "Is this a human mating ritual?" she asked innocently. Despite the gravity of their situation, Will couldn't help but laugh. "Something like that," he said, marveling at the beautiful complexity of their relationship. Their moment of connection was interrupted by an intercepted transmission. Both human and Iridian fleets were converging on Nexus Prime, intent on capturing the defectors. Will's mind raced, formulating a new plan. "We need to move now. Without Zara and Marcus, we'll have to infiltrate that research facility on our own." Juno nodded, her persistence matching his own. "Then let's go. Together." They slipped out of the storage room, making their way to the base's hangar. With Juno's knowledge and Will's skills, they commandeered a Iridian scout ship and blasted off into space. As they set course for the secret facility, Will began briefing Juno on human infiltration tactics. In turn, she shared intricate details about Iridian culture and physiology, deepening their understanding of each other. Their approach to the heavily fortified moon was tense. Will's hands flew over the controls, his focus absolute. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. "We're caught in a tractor beam," Juno exclaimed, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Will's teeth clenched as he fought against the inexorable pull. "Hang on, this is where the real fun begins." As their ship was drawn towards the facility, Will and Juno shared a look of drive. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The fate of two civilizations, in their own uncertain future, hung in the balance. Balance. The ship shuddered violently as it was caught in the inexorable grip of the tractor beam. Will's hands flew across the controls, fighting against the pull, but to no avail. "Brace for impact!" Will shouted as the Iridian research facility loomed before them. Juno clutched her seat, her newly human features taut with tension. In the seconds before impact, Will turned to Juno, his voice low and urgent. "Remember, stay close and follow my lead. Use your knowledge of Iridian tech to our advantage." Juno nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and persistence. The ship slammed into the hangar bay floor, metal screeching as it skidded across the polished surface. Alarms blared throughout the facility, their high-pitched wail adding to the chaos. As the ship ground to a halt, Will and Juno stumbled out of the smoking wreckage. They found themselves surrounded by a squad of Iridian security forces, their weapons trained on the intruders. Will's combat training kicked in instantly. He launched himself at the nearest guard, his movements a blur of precision and power. Juno watched in awe as Will disarmed one Iridian after another, his human physiology granting him speed and strength that surpassed her people's capabilities. Snapping out of her momentary trance, Juno spotted a nearby control panel. She darted towards it, her fingers flying over the alien interface with practiced ease. "Cover me!" she called to Will as she worked to hack into the system. Will grunted in acknowledgement, delivering a crushing blow to a guard's midsection. "Hurry!" he yelled back, ducking under a swipe from an electrified baton. Juno's efforts paid off as the lights in the hangar suddenly flickered and died. The Iridian guard stumbled, disoriented by the unexpected darkness. Will seized the opportunity, efficiently neutralizing the remaining threats. As emergency lighting bathed the hangar in an eerie red glow, Will grabbed Juno's hand. "Nice work. Now let's move." They sprinted through the facility's winding corridors, Will's enhanced senses guiding them past patrols and through security checkpoints. Juno marveled at his physical prowess, the fluid grace of his movements so different from the Iridian soldiers she was accustomed to. After what felt like hours of cat and mouse with the facility's security forces, They finally reached the data center. The room hummed with the sound of advanced computers, holographic displays flickering with streams of data. Juno immediately set to work on the main terminal, her fingers dancing across the interface. "The weapon plans are here," she said, excitement coloring her voice. "But there's a problem." Will glanced nervously at the door. "What kind of problem?" "A biosensor lock," Juno explained, gesturing to a sleek panel beside the main computer. "It requires a specific genetic signature to grant access." Will's brow furrowed. "Can you bypass it?" Juno shook her head, then paused. "Wait, my father, his genetic code, I share part of it. It might be enough to partially unlock the system." She placed her hand on the scanner, holding her breath. The panel glowed, then beeped in rejection. "It's not enough," she said, frustration evident in her voice. Will's mind raced, considering their options. An idea struck him, bold and unconventional. What if we combined our genetic material? Create a more complex key? Juno looked at him, confused. "How would we do that?" Will swallowed hard, suddenly nervous. "There's a human method. It's called kissing." Juno's eyes widened. "Kissing? I don't understand." As quickly as he could, Will explained the concept, its cultural significance, and its potential practical application in their current situation. Juno listened, her expression a mix of fascination and uncertainty. "So, this kissing," Juno said slowly, "it's a mating ritual that also exchanges genetic material?" Will nodded, acutely aware of the ticking clock and the danger that surrounded them. "It's worth a try, isn't it?" Juno hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right, show me this human ritual." Will stepped closer, his heart pounding. He gently cupped Juno's face in his hands, marveling at the softness of her now human skin. Slowly he leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. Juno gasped at the contact, overwhelmed by the new sensations. Will deepened the kiss, guiding her gently. After a moment of hesitation, Juno began to respond, mimicking his movements. When they finally parted, both were breathless. Juno touched her lips, wonder in her eyes. "That was intense," she whispered. Will smiled softly, then gestured to the biosensor. "Let's see if it worked." Juno placed her hand on the scanner once more, their mixed saliva still present. To their amazement and relief, the panel glowed green. The data vault hissed open, revealing the sought-after weapon plans. As they began downloading the information, the facility suddenly shook with a series of explosions. Will rushed to a nearby window, his eyes widening at the sight before him. A fleet of human ships engaged in fierce combat with the Iridian defenses. At the forefront, Will recognized a familiar vessel, Admiral Helena Stryker's flagship. "It's a full-scale assault," Will said, his voice tight. "They don't know we're here." Before Juno could respond, another ship caught her attention. Her blood ran cold as she recognized the sleek lines of Commander Zex's warship among the Iridian reinforcements. "Will," she said urgently, "we're out of time. We need to make a decision." Will's mind raced, weighing their options. Escape seemed nearly impossible with the battle raging outside. Suddenly, a daring plan formed in his mind. "We use the weapon plans as leverage," he said, his voice firm. "Force both sides into a ceasefire." Juno's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "We'd have to reveal our location, expose ourselves to both fleets." Will nodded grimly. "It's a risk, but it might be our only chance to end this war." Juno took a deep breath, then met Will's gaze with newfound dedication. "Let's do it." As they began preparations to transmit the data and their proposal for peace talks, Juno found herself reflecting on how drastically her view of humans, and especially Will, had changed. The man beside her was so much more than the enemy she had once perceived. With the fate of both their species hanging in the balance, Will and Juno worked feverishly to compile their message. The sound of battle grew ever closer, a constant reminder of the precious little time they had left. As Will's finger hovered over the transmit button, he turned to Juno. Their eyes met, a world of unspoken emotions passing between them. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. Will pressed the button, sending their message hurtling through space towards both fleets. Now, all they could do was wait and hope that their unprecedented alliance would be enough to bridge the gap between their warring peoples. Species. Will pressed the transmit button, sending their message hurtling through space towards both fleets. The facility's powerful communication array amplified their signal, ensuring it would reach every ship in the vicinity. As the transmission began, the sounds of battle outside seemed to falter. Will and Juno exchanged a tense glance, hoping their gambit would pay off. Seconds stretched into an eternity as they waited for a response. Suddenly, the facility shook violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. Will steadied Juno, his hand lingering on her arm. "We need to move," he said urgently. "They'll be coming for us now." They sprinted from the data center, alarms blaring all around them. The corridor ahead was chaos, filled with panicking scientists and disoriented security personnel. Will took point, his combat training evident in every fluid movement, as he dispatched Iridian guards with precision strikes. Juno followed close behind, her newfound human agility surprising her, as she ducked and weaved through the melee. "Left here," she called out, guiding them through the labyrinthine facility. Her intimate knowledge of the layout proved invaluable as they navigated towards a potential escape route. As they rounded a corner, they encountered a group of Iridian warriors in full battle gear. Will reacted instantly, launching himself at the nearest opponent. His fist connected with surprising force, sending the alien stumbling backward. Juno watched in awe as Will fought, his movements a blur of controlled violence. She had never seen anything like it before. The efficiency and adaptability of his fighting style were unlike anything in Iridian martial arts. Using a nearby control panel, Juno triggered an emergency bulkhead, cutting off half of their pursuers. "Will!" she shouted. "The hangar bay is just ahead!" They burst through the doors into the cavernous space, only to find themselves facing a nightmare scenario. A squad of elite Iridian warriors stood in formation, led by a towering figure Juno recognized immediately. "Father," she whispered, her voice a mix of fear and regret. Commander Zex stepped forward, his multiple eyes fixed on Will with predatory intensity. "So," he rumbled, "this is the human who has corrupted my daughter." Will shifted into a fighting stance, his eyes never leaving Zex. "Your daughter made her own choice," he said firmly. "She wants peace, just like I do." Zex's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement or disgust. "Peace? There can be no peace while your kind exists." He turned to Juno, his voice softening slightly. "Come back to us, daughter. It's not too late." Juno felt torn, centuries of cultural conditioning warring with her newfound beliefs. She looked at Will, seeing the drive in his eyes, and made her decision. "No, father. I stand with Will." Zex's posture stiffened. "Then you leave me no choice." He pointed at Will. "You, human, face me in combat. If you win, you may leave with my traitorous offspring. If you lose, you both die here." Will nodded grimly. "I accept." The two circled each other warily. Zex's multiple limbs gave him a clear advantage in reach and potential striking power. Will, however, moved with a fluid grace that spoke of extensive training. Zex struck first, his arms lashing out in a flurry of strikes. Will dodged and weaved, narrowly avoiding each blow. He countered with a quick jab to Zex's midsection, but the Iridian's tough exoskeleton absorbed the impact. The fight intensified, both combatants trading blows at a furious pace. Zex's superior strength allowed him to shrug off hits that would have felled a human opponent. Will, however, used his agility to stay just out of reach, frustrating the Iridian commander. Juno watched the battle with her heart in her throat. She had never seen her father truly challenged before, and Will's human fighting techniques were a revelation. The creativity and adaptability he displayed were unlike anything in Iridian martial arts. As the fight wore on, Will began to employ moves Zex had clearly never encountered. He used grappling techniques to redirect the Iridian's strength against him, and struck at weak points in the alien anatomy that Juno had taught him. Zex, growing frustrated, overextended himself in a powerful strike. Will seized the opportunity, ducking under the blow and using a complex throw to send the massive Iridian crashing to the ground. Before Zex could recover, Will had him pinned in a submission hold. "Yield!" Will gasped, his muscles straining to hold the alien commander. For a long moment, silence reigned in the hangar bay. Then, to everyone's shock, Zex tapped the ground 3 times, the universal signal of surrender. Will released him and stepped back, breathing heavily. The surrounding Iridian warriors lowered their weapons, a murmur of respect rippling through their ranks. Zex rose slowly, his alien features unreadable. "You fight with honor, human," he said grudgingly. Perhaps there is more to your species than we believed." Before anyone could respond, the hangar doors burst open once more. Admiral Helena Stryker strode in, flanked by a team of heavily armed human soldiers. "Nobody move!" she barked, her weapon trained on Zex. Will quickly stepped between the two groups, his hands raised. "Wait, Admiral, please, we have a chance for peace here." Stryker's eyes narrowed. "Explain, and make it quick." Will took a deep breath, acutely aware of the tension in the room. "We have the weapon plans. We can use them as leverage to bring both sides to the negotiating table. Commander Zex," he turned to the Iridian leader, "you've seen what humans are capable of. Isn't it time we ended this war?" Zex regarded Will silently for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Perhaps it is. A conference, then, to discuss possibilities." As the tensions in the room began to ease, Juno stepped forward. "We need representatives from the Harmony Initiative as well. They can provide a neutral perspective." Stryker lowered her weapon slowly. "Agreed. We'll arrange it immediately." As preparations for the impromptu peace conference began, Will found himself alone with Juno for a moment. The adrenaline of battle still coursed through them, mingling with the tentative hope for peace. Juno touched Will's arm gently. "Your fighting style? I've never seen anything like it. Are there other human customs that are so different from ours?" Will smiled, recognizing the opportunity for cultural exchange. "Many," he said. "Maybe we could start with some of our less violent traditions. There's this thing called dancing, for instance." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Zara and Dr. Marcus Boyd, looking battered but alive. "We made it!" Zara exclaimed. "And you won't believe the news we've brought." As the various factions gathered for the conference, Will and Juno shared a look of cautious optimism. The real challenge lay ahead, but for the first time, peace seemed like a genuine possibility. They would face whatever came next together, as representatives of a new era of human-Iridian relations. The hangar bay, still bearing the scars of recent combat, transformed into an impromptu conference room. Makeshift tables and chairs were hastily arranged, creating a neutral ground for the historic meeting. Admiral Helena Stryker took her place at one end, her posture rigid and eyes alert. Across from her, Commander Zex settled into a specially designed chair to accommodate his alien physiology. Will and Juno positioned themselves between the two factions, their physical proximity a living symbol of the bridge they hoped to build. Zara and Dr. Marcus Boyd flanked them, representing the Harmony Initiative's neutral stance. As the talks began, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Admiral Stryker leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Let's be clear. We want full disclosure of all Iridian weapons research." Commander Zex's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Unacceptable. We demand the same from human forces." The two leaders glared at each other, neither willing to give ground. Will cleared his throat, drawing their attention. "What if we approach this differently?" he suggested. "Instead of focusing on our arsenals, why don't we consider ways to understand each other better?" Juno nodded, building on Will's idea. "A cultural exchange program could be beneficial. It would allow us to learn from each other, starting with our military personnel." Commander Zex tilted his head, considering. "Intriguing. Your combat skills were impressive, human. There may be value in such an exchange." Admiral Stryker's eyebrows rose. "And what would we gain from this arrangement?" Juno stepped forward, her voice clear and confident. "Technology, Admiral. Iridian advancements in propulsion and energy systems could revolutionize human space travel." A spark of interest lit Stryker's eyes. "Go on," she said, leaning back in her chair. As the negotiations continued, Will found himself constantly aware of Juno's presence beside him. The stress of the situation, combined with their shared experiences, heightened his attraction to her. During a brief recess, they found themselves alone in a quiet corner of the hangar. "This is surreal," Juno whispered, her eyes wide. "A few days ago, I never would have imagined standing here, advocating for peace with humans." Will smiled, struck by an idea. "Speaking of human customs, there's another one I'd like to show you. It's called dancing." Juno's brow furrowed. "Dancing? Is it a form of combat?" Will chuckled. "Not exactly. It's a way we express ourselves physically, often used in courtship." He held out his hand. "May I?" Hesitantly, Juno placed her hand in his. Will gently pulled her close, positioning one of her hands on his shoulder and holding the other. He began to sway, guiding her through the steps of a slow dance. At first, Juno moved awkwardly, her alien physiology struggling to adapt to the unfamiliar motions. "This seems pointless," she muttered. "Give it time," Will encouraged. "Try to feel the rhythm." Gradually, Juno began to relax. Her movements became more fluid, syncing with Will's. She marveled at the intimacy of the experience, the way their bodies moved in harmony. "I think I understand now," she murmured, her eyes locked with Will's. Their moment was shattered by a commotion at the hangar entrance. An imposing Iridian figure strode in, flanked by a contingent of diplomats. Juno stiffened in Will's arms. "Father," she gasped. High Counselor Vex surveyed the scene, his multiple eyes narrowing as they settled on Will and Juno. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. Commander Zex rose, bowing slightly. "High Counselor, we are in the midst of peace negotiations." Vex's gaze snapped to his daughter. "And you, Juno, consorting with the enemy?" Juno stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "Father, please listen. This war has gone on long enough. We have a chance for peace, for understanding between our species." Will moved to stand beside her. "Sir, your daughter has shown incredible courage and wisdom. She's been instrumental in bringing us to this point." Vex studied them both, his expression unreadable. After a long moment, he spoke. Perhaps it is time to consider new possibilities." As negotiations resumed, the addition of High Counselor Vex added a new layer of complexity. The discussion turned to the weapon plans Will and Juno had broadcast earlier. "This technology is too dangerous to be controlled by a single species," Admiral Stryker argued. Commander Zex bristled. "And you believe humans are more worthy of such power?" Will interjected before the argument could escalate. "What if we formed a joint task force? We could study the weapon together, with the ultimate goal of dismantling it and repurposing the technology for peaceful uses." The suggestion sparked intense debate. Trust and verification became key issues, with both sides demanding access to the other's military facilities. As the talks reached a critical impasse, Juno stepped forward. "I volunteer," she announced, her voice ringing through the hangar. "I will be the first participant in the cultural exchange program. I'll live among humans, learn their ways, and serve as a bridge between our peoples." A hush fell over the assembly. High Counselor Vex stared at his daughter, shock evident in his alien features. Will, moved by Juno's bravery, stepped up beside her. "And I volunteer to be her counterpart. I'll live among the Iridians, learning your culture and customs." Their bold moves shifted the atmosphere in the room. The personal sacrifice offered by Will and Juno served as a powerful symbol of the potential for cooperation and understanding between humans and Iridians. As the negotiations stretched into the night, the foundation for a new era of interstellar relations began to take shape. Will and Juno found themselves at the center of it all, their growing relationship a testament to the possibilities that lay ahead. The peace talks were far from concluded, but a spark of hope had been ignited. As the various factions retired to consider the day's proposals, Will and Juno shared a quiet moment. "Are you ready for this?" Will asked softly, taking her hand. Juno squeezed his fingers, her alien touch now familiar and comforting. "As long as we face it together," she replied, her eyes shining with dedication and something more. Their journey was just beginning, but in that moment the future seemed bright with promise. possibility. As Will and Juno gazed at each other, the weight of their new responsibilities settled upon them. The path ahead would be challenging, but they were ready to face it together. Weeks later, Will found himself aboard a Iridian transport vessel, hurtling through space towards Iridia Prime. He pressed his hand against the viewport, watching as Earth shrank to a tiny blue speck in the distance. His heart ached with the knowledge that Juno was on that diminishing planet, but he steeled himself for the task ahead. The journey to Iridia Prime took several days, during which Will studied Iridian language and customs. When the ship finally entered the planet's atmosphere, he felt the increased gravity immediately. His body sagged, limbs suddenly leaden. A Iridian escort met him at the spaceport. "Welcome to Iridia Prime, Ambassador Will," the alien said, mandibles clicking. "I am Kraz, your liaison." Will nodded, already out of breath. "Thank you, Kraz. I look forward to learning about your world." As they moved through the spaceport, Will's legs trembled with each step. The air felt thick, almost soupy, and he found himself gasping slightly. Kraz noticed his discomfort. "The gravity here is 1.4 times that of Earth. Your body will adapt, but it will take time. We have arranged for you to undergo physical conditioning and medical treatments to ease the transition." Will's first weeks on Iridia Prime were grueling. Each morning, he dragged himself to a specially designed gym where Iridian physiotherapists put him through a rigorous workout routine. Afternoons were filled with language lessons and cultural seminars. One day, during a meeting with Iridian military officials, Will unintentionally caused offense by maintaining eye contact with a high-ranking general. In Iridian culture, such direct eye contact was seen as a challenge to authority. "Apologies," Will said quickly, lowering his gaze. "I'm still learning your customs. In human culture, eye contact is a sign of respect and attentiveness." The general's mandibles twitched in what Will had come to recognize as a sign of curiosity. "Interesting. Perhaps there is merit in your human ways of communication. Tell me more about your military protocols." Meanwhile, on Earth, Juno was facing her own set of challenges. The lower gravity made her movements ungainly, causing her to bump into objects and people frequently. During a tour of a human military base, she accidentally sent a stack of papers flying with an overly enthusiastic gesture. "I'm so sorry," she said, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into English. "Your gravity is disconcerting." Admiral Stryker, who was leading the tour, waved off her apology. "No harm done. We'll get you some movement training to help you adjust." Juno found human social norms particularly perplexing. During a diplomatic dinner, she recoiled when a human attempted to shake her hand, her natural instinct interpreting the gesture as a threat. "My apologies," she said, forcing herself to extend her appendage. "In Iridian culture, physical contact is reserved for mates and close family members." The human diplomat nodded understandingly. "No offense taken. This is precisely why this exchange program is so valuable. We have much to learn from each other." As the months passed, both Will and Juno made significant progress in their respective roles. Will's perseverance in adapting to Iridian physiology and customs began to win him admirers among the initially skeptical aliens. During a military exchange program, Will demonstrated human hand-to-hand combat techniques to a group of Iridian soldiers. The aliens were impressed by the efficiency and adaptability of his movements. "Your fighting style is most intriguing," one Iridian officer commented. "It relies less on brute strength and more on leverage and technique. This could be quite effective against larger opponents." In return, the Iridians taught Will their battle strategies, which utilized their unique physiology and advanced technology. Will was amazed by their ability to process multiple streams of information simultaneously, a skill that made them formidable tacticians. On Earth, Juno was making her own contributions. She worked closely with human scientists, sharing Iridian knowledge of faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation. The humans, in turn, introduced her to their advancements in biotechnology and artificial intelligence. "Your work in genetic engineering is fascinating," Juno said during a lab session. "Iridians have focused more on technological augmentation rather than biological manipulation. This could open up new avenues for medical treatments." Despite their busy schedules, Will and Juno made time for regular video calls. They shared their experiences, laughed over cultural misunderstandings, and provided each other with much-needed emotional support. "I miss you," Will said during one call, his image flickering slightly due to the vast distance between them. "But seeing the progress we're making, it's worth it, isn't it?" Juno's mandibles clicked in agreement. "It is, though I must admit I'm having trouble with human food. How do you manage with so many flavors?" Will laughed. "Just wait until I introduce you to ice cream. You'll never want to leave Earth." As they continued their conversation, neither Will nor Juno noticed the shadowy figure lurking just out of sight of Juno's camera, watching their exchange with malevolent interest. The piece they were working so hard to build was about to face its first real test. The shadowy figure moved silently away from Juno's quarters, careful not to alert her to its presence. As Will and Juno's conversation continued, oblivious to the threat lurking nearby, events were already in motion that would test their relationship and the fragile peace they had worked so hard to build. Months passed, and the cultural exchange program bore fruit. Will and Juno's efforts to bridge the gap between their species had not gone unnoticed. Their relationship, once viewed with skepticism and even hostility, had become a symbol of hope for lasting peace between humans and Iridians. It was Admiral Stryker who first broached the subject during a high-level meeting between human and Iridian officials. "Will and Juno's partnership has demonstrated the potential for our species to coexist and even thrive together," he said, his voice firm. "I believe we should take the next logical step." High Counselor Vex, who had come to respect Will during his time on Iridia Prime, clicked his mandibles in agreement. A formal union between them would send a powerful message to both our peoples. And so plans for an unprecedented human-Iridian mating ceremony began to take shape. The news spread quickly, generating excitement and controversy in equal measure. Will and Juno found themselves at the center of a media storm, their every move scrutinized and debated across two worlds. As the date of the ceremony approached, a new complication arose. A star system, previously unexplored, became a point of contention between human and Iridian explorers. Both sides claimed rights to a habitable planet rich in valuable resources. In a bold move, Admiral Stryker and High Counselor Vex proposed holding Will and Juno's ceremony on this disputed world. "What better way to demonstrate our commitment to cooperation?" Stryker argued. "This planet could be the foundation of our shared future." The day of the ceremony arrived. Will and Juno's transport ship broke through the planet's atmosphere, revealing a landscape of breathtaking alien beauty. Purple-leaved forests sprawled across the continent, their canopies shimmering under the light of two moons hanging in a lavender sky. As they stepped onto the plateau chosen for the ceremony, Will took Juno's hand. "It's more beautiful than I imagined," he said, his voice filled with awe. Juno's mandibles quivered in what Will now recognized as a smile. "It's perfect," she agreed. "A new world for our new beginning." They took a moment to themselves before the guests arrived, walking to the edge of the plateau that overlooked the vast alien forest below. Will turned to Juno, drinking in the sight of her. Despite their physiological differences, he found her beautiful, her exoskeleton gleaming in the alien sunlight. "I've missed you," he said softly. "These past months on Iridia Prime, they've been challenging, but knowing you were out there, working just as hard on Earth, it kept me going." Juno's antennae twitched, a gesture Will had come to associate with deep emotion. "I've missed you too, Will. Earth has been fascinating, but often lonely. I'm glad we're together again." Their moment of intimacy was shattered by the sudden blaring of alarms. Will's communicator buzzed urgently. He activated it, and a holographic image of Zara appeared, her face etched with concern. "Will, Juno, we have a situation," she said, her voice tense. "The Purity Front has launched coordinated attacks across human and Iridian space. We believe their ultimate target is your ceremony." Dr. Marcus Boyd's face appeared next to Zara's. "Our intelligence suggests they aim to sabotage the peace process and reignite the war. You need to prepare for an imminent attack." Will and Juno exchanged a determined look. Without a word, they sprung into action, their months of training in each other's military tactics coming into play. Will began organizing the human security forces, implementing Iridian battle strategies he had learned during his exchange. "Set up a multi-tiered defense perimeter," he ordered. "I want overlapping fields of fire and hidden fallback positions. Remember, we're dealing with an enemy that knows both human and Iridian tactics." Meanwhile, Juno took charge of the Iridian security detail. "Implement adaptive camouflage protocols," she instructed. "Utilize human-style guerrilla tactics to keep the enemy off balance, and maintain constant communication between all units." As the first guests began to arrive, including diplomatic envoys and military leaders from both species, the sound of weapons fire echoed in the distance. A group of heavily armed attackers, a mix of humans and Iridians, emerged from the tree line at the base of the plateau. Will grabbed a pulse rifle and took up a defensive position. "Here they come!" he shouted. "Remember your training. We fight as one." The battle erupted in full force. Will led a counterattack, his movements a fluid blend of human agility and Iridian precision. He weaved through enemy fire, using the terrain to his advantage in a way that impressed even the veteran Iridian soldiers. From a hastily assembled command center, Juno coordinated the defense. Her understanding of both human and Iridian military technology allowed her to predict and counter the attackers' moves with uncanny accuracy. "Squad 3, flank to the east," she ordered. "They're trying to exploit a blind spot in our sensor grid. Human Team Charlie, provide covering fire." As the battle raged, neither Will nor Juno noticed a lone figure slipping through the chaos, making its way toward the gathered dignitaries. The assassin, a fanatical member of the Purity Front, had eyes only for High Counselor Vex. Juno, scanning the battlefield through high-powered optics, caught a glint of metal near her father. Her heart raced as she realized the danger. Without hesitation, she vaulted over the command center's barricade and sprinted toward the threat. The assassin raised his weapon, aiming at the High Counselor. In that moment, Juno's training on Earth came to the fore. She launched herself into a perfect flying tackle, a move she had learned from human martial arts instructors. Her body slammed into the assassin, sending them both tumbling to the ground. They grappled fiercely, the assassin's extra limbs giving him an advantage. But Juno had spent months adapting to Earth's lower gravity, and her muscles, stronger than ever, powered through the assassin's defenses. With a series of swift strikes learned from human close combat techniques, she subdued the attacker. High Counselor Vex stared at his daughter, mandibles agape in shock and newfound respect. "Juno," he said, his voice filled with a mix of pride and regret, "you saved my life." As the Purity Front attack was repelled, Will and Juno regrouped, breathing heavily from the exertion of battle. Their moment of relief was short-lived, however, as the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Zara's voice crackled over the comm system. "Will, Juno, we've detected massive energy readings coming from beneath the planet's surface. It's some kind of ancient Iridian device, and it's activating." Will and Juno shared a look of persistence. Their ceremony would have to wait. Once again, the fate of two species rested in their hands. Hands. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. The ancient Iridian device beneath the surface presented a new challenge, but they would face it together. "We need to investigate that energy signature," Will said, his voice steady despite the fatigue of battle. Juno nodded, her antennae twitching with curiosity. "Agreed. But first, we should secure the area and tend to any wounded." As they organized their forces and treated the injured, both human and Iridian, the ground continued to rumble ominously. Scientists from both species quickly set up monitoring equipment, eager to unravel the mystery beneath their feet. Dr. Marcus Boyd approached Will and Juno, his face a mix of excitement and concern. "Preliminary scans indicate the device is some sort of terraforming technology. It appears to be reshaping the planet's ecosystem on a molecular level." High Counselor Vex joined them, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. This world was once an outpost of the ancient Iridian Empire. The device must have lain dormant for millennia. Will's mind raced with the implications. Could this technology be the reason both our species claimed this planet? Some sort of subconscious recognition of its importance? Before anyone could respond, a brilliant light erupted from the forest below. The ground shook violently, nearly knocking them off their feet. As they watched in awe, the landscape began to transform. Purple leaves shifted to a vibrant green, while new plant species sprouted from the soil in a matter of minutes. "It's not just terraforming," Juno observed, her scientific mind analyzing the data streaming across her handheld device. "It's creating a hybrid ecosystem, combining elements from both Earth and Iridia Prime." As the transformation slowed, a sense of calm settled over the plateau. The diplomats and military leaders from both species gazed out at the new world before them, a living symbol of what humans and Iridians could achieve together. Admiral Stryker stepped forward, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "It seems this planet has made its own decision about who it belongs to. It belongs to both of us, a shared world for our shared future." A murmur of agreement rippled through the gathering. The dispute over the planet's ownership, which had threatened to reignite tensions between humans and Iridians, now seemed insignificant in the face of this marvel. Zara, who had been coordinating communications from orbit, landed on the plateau in a small shuttle. She rushed to Will and Juno, her face beaming with excitement. "The news of your victory over the Purity Front is spreading across both our worlds. People are calling you heroes, symbols of our alliance." Will and Juno exchanged a look, both feeling the weight of expectation settling on their shoulders. They had come here to formalize their union, but fate had other plans. High Counselor Vex approached the couple, his posture radiating authority. "In light of these events, I believe we should proceed with the ceremony immediately. This newly reborn world shall be the perfect backdrop for your union." Admiral Stryker nodded in agreement. A human-Iridian marriage, witnessed by leaders of both our species, on a planet that embodies our cooperation. It's more than a ceremony, it's a statement to the galaxy. As word spread of the impending ceremony, the plateau became a flurry of activity. Human and Iridian crew members worked side by side, setting up a makeshift altar that blended elements from both cultures. Will changed into a unique outfit that combined his military dress uniform with traditional Iridian formal wear, the result of months of careful cultural exchange and design. Juno emerged from a hastily erected privacy screen, stunning in an iridescent gown that seemed to capture the shifting colors of the new landscape below. Will's breath caught in his throat as he saw her, marveling at how she could still surprise him after all they had been through. As they took their places before the assembled dignitaries and soldiers, Will and Juno faced each other. The ceremony began, a carefully choreographed blend of human and Iridian traditions. They spoke their vows in both languages, their words translated for all to hear. Then came the moment Will had both anticipated and dreaded, the human custom of the kiss. He had explained the concept to Juno before, but practicing in private was very different from performing it before an audience of two species. Will leaned in, his lips meeting Juno's mandibles in a gentle press. A collective gasp rose from the Iridian attendees, while the humans cheered. As they parted, Will saw a new understanding in Juno's compound eyes. "That was interesting," Juno said, her voice low enough for only Will to hear. "I think I might enjoy exploring more human customs in private." As the ceremony concluded, Will and Juno turned to face the crowd, their hands and multiple limbs intertwined in a complex pattern that symbolized their union. Admiral Stryker stepped forward, his voice ringing out across the plateau. "Today we witness not just the union of two individuals, but the birth of a new era of cooperation between our species. Will and Juno have shown us that our differences can be our greatest strength when we work together." High Counselor Vex joined him, his mandibles clicking in agreement. "Let this world stand as a testament to what we can achieve. I propose we name it Harmony, a fitting tribute to the peace we have forged." As the sun began to set on the newly christened planet Harmony, casting the hybrid landscape in a warm alien glow, Will and Juno stood at the edge of the plateau. They looked out over the world that would become their home and the site of their greatest challenge yet, building a true multicultural society where humans and Iridians could live and work together in peace. "Ready for our next adventure?" Will asked, squeezing Juno's hand. Juno's antenna twitched with excitement. "Always, as long as we're together." As they turned to join the celebration, neither of them could have predicted the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. The story of Harmony was just beginning, and Will and Juno would be at its heart, pioneering a new future for both their species. As they explored their new home together. Little did they know that their greatest adventure was yet to come. In the months following their wedding, in the miraculous transformation of harmony, Will and Juno found themselves thrust into the spotlight as ambassadors of human-Iridian cooperation. Their days were filled with meetings, tours, and endless rounds of introductions as they worked to build a truly integrated society on their new world. One evening, as they prepared for their first official diplomatic mission off-world, Juno approached Will with an unusual expression on her face. Her antennae twitched nervously, and her compound eyes seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "Will," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I think I might be pregnant." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. Will's eyes widened, his mind racing through the possibilities. A human Iridian child. Was it even possible? "Are you sure?" he asked, reaching out to take her hand. Juno shook her head. "Not entirely. My body has been different lately, but I'm not certain how a hybrid pregnancy would manifest." They agreed to keep the information to themselves until they could confirm it and understand the full implications. With their diplomatic mission looming, they couldn't afford the distraction of a public announcement. Their shuttle touched down on Nova Terra, a remote human colony that had seen a significant influx of Iridian immigrants in recent years. Tensions between the two populations had been rising, and Will and Juno's presence was meant to ease fears and promote understanding. As they stepped off the shuttle, Will noticed Juno wince slightly. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern etching his features. "Just a bit of discomfort," she assured him. "Nothing to worry about." But as the days wore on, it became clear that Juno was struggling. Her iridescent skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, and she often paused mid-sentence as if struck by a sudden wave of nausea. During a particularly tense negotiation session between human colonists and Iridian immigrants, Juno suddenly swayed on her feet. Will watched in horror as her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed to the floor. "Juno!" he cried, rushing to her side. The room erupted into chaos as both humans and Iridians crowded around, their differences momentarily forgotten in the face of this medical emergency. Will scooped Juno into his arms, her body feeling unnaturally warm against his chest. "I need a doctor," he shouted, already moving towards the door. "Both human and Iridian, if possible." He raced through the streets of the colony, Juno's unconscious form cradled against him. The colonial medical facility loomed ahead, a stark white building that seemed to promise salvation. Inside, a team of human and Iridian doctors quickly converged on Juno. Will watched helplessly as they attached monitoring devices and began rapid-fire discussions in a mixture of human and Iridian medical jargon. "Sir," a human doctor approached him, her face grave. "We need to know if there's any possibility that your wife might be pregnant." Will hesitated for a moment, then nodded. We think she might be, but we're not sure. We don't even know if it's possible." The doctor's eyes widened. "A hybrid pregnancy? That's unprecedented. We'll need to run some tests immediately." As the medical team worked to stabilize Juno's condition, Will found himself pacing the waiting room. He couldn't shake the feeling that their private joy had just become a public spectacle. His suspicions were confirmed when he stepped outside to get some air and found a crowd gathered around the medical facility. News traveled fast in a small colony, and the possibility of a human-Iridian hybrid had spread like wildfire. Will's communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Stryker. "Will?" The Admiral's voice was tense. "We're getting reports from Nova Terra. Is it true? Is Juno pregnant?" Will took a deep breath. There was no going back now. "We think so, sir, but we don't know for sure yet. The doctors are running tests now." There was a long pause on the other end. "Understood. Keep us informed. And Will, good luck." As Will ended the call, he looked up at the alien sky of Nova Terra. Somewhere out there across the vast expanse of space was Harmony, the world where this all began. He touched the simple band on his ring finger, a symbol of his union with Juno. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As he turned to go back inside, Will silently vowed to do whatever it took to protect his wife and their unborn child, a child that might just change the course of two civilizations forever.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.